special meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Monday, May 17th, 2021 at 7 p.m. via teleconference. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Susan Lovering, and Alderman Klee will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
I think it's Allison.
Yep, I'll be reading for Sue.
Thank you, Allison.
Yeah. Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're on mute, Lori.
Madam President, you're mute.
I was halfway through my spiel.
I thought you were.
Come on. As president of the Board of Aldermen, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-4, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone, with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the city's website for the meeting link. To join by phone, dial 1-929-205-6099. The meeting ID is 825-1383-1135, and the passcode is 373407. The public may also view the meeting via channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed in the Nashua Telegraph, City Hall, and the Nashua Public Library. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I would call on Allison Waite to take the roll.
Alderman O'Brien.
I am present. I can hear the proceedings and I am alone.
Alderman Klee.
I am here. I can hear the proceedings and I am alone.
Alderwoman Kelly.
I'm here, I'm alone, and I can hear everyone.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I am present. I can hear everyone and I am alone.
Alderman Karen.
Yes, I am here. I am alone and I hear everyone.
Alderman Clemens. Alderman Lopez. Alderman Tenza.
I'm present. I am alone and I can hear everyone.
Alderwoman Liu.
I'm here alone and I can hear you.
Alderman Jettie.
I'm here alone and I can hear the proceedings.
Alderman Schmidt.
I am present, alone, and can hear the proceedings.
Alderman Laws.
I'm here, I'm alone, and I can hear everything.
Alderman Cleaver. Alderman Harriet Gathright.
I am present, I am here alone, and I can hear everyone.
Alderman Wilshire.
I'm here, I'm alone, and I can hear everyone.
All right, you have 12 in attendance.
Thank you very much. As is usual and customary, this being a public hearing of the Budget Committee, I will turn over the public hearing to The Chair of the Budget Review Committee, Alderman Dowd.
Thank you. Tonight, we have a public hearing on R 21-134 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $30,000 of unanticipated revenue into Department Number 160, Public Works, Administration and Engineering. Who is here from the city to explain that? Director Marchand.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. I do know that City Engineer Dan Hudson is here as well, but even though this is for engineering funding, I would like to speak first. These funds are largely to help with private development review that the city undergoes as part of the land use board process, mainly planning board, sometimes some of the other boards as well. And the good news is that we have a lot going on, and we have for quite a while. We are sustained a significantly higher number of applications coming in this spring, and there is no end in sight. And while our engineering department is doing everything they can to keep up, we are falling further behind, pushing applicants further and further out from when they can have their turn in front of the planning board to get plans approved. In addition, we have some complicated plans that are coming through that require a lot of time and effort. And so because of this, and in an effort to try to be a bit proactive before we are utterly drowning, I am before you to ask for some appropriations of funding into this account for Public Works, which they have a in-place contract with HTA to be able to sub out some of the smaller work for planning board review, which is a normal practice and enabled by state law, so that we can keep ahead of applications and make sure that we keep our development pipeline open and on track to make sure people can build when they need to. We have tough winter season deadlines, and we also then benefit from the increased tax value to the city as these projects move forward. Significantly more than the dollars that we're asking to be entered into this fund. So that is a quick summary. I'm happy to answer questions. I can give you a very quick average. We normally look at between 6 and 8 applications coming through at any one time. In the past couple of years, we are currently have been averaging over 10 and as high as 21. We have 17 in the pipeline right now, active. And if you have tried to have an application get through recently, you'll know that the timelines are being pushed out a bit, and we can't even get through the planning board agendas fully. And so we are working very hard to keep everybody moving, but we do need a little bit of help before it gets significantly backed up. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Are there any Alderman Tenza?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Marchand, thank you for bringing this to us. Is there anything else we can be doing to help streamline the process so that I know in the recent past we have changed the ordinances so that people don't necessarily have to go back to your office or in front of the planning board for approvals of things? I mean, is this a long-term problem that we should be looking kind of more broadly at than just trying to push people through the process more quickly?
I think that's a great question. There are 2 parts to that. Yes, there's certainly the changes that we've made to allow for administrative review and approval to not force somebody into the planning board timeline have saved the applicant's time and energy, but it's still the same coordination process for planning and engineering. They're still reviewing these plans. They are still making every effort. I mean, we have to make sure they still comply with city ordinances, the drainage, the stormwater, the landscaping. And so there is still significant staff time involved. It just helps the applicant to avoid the planning board. So while that does take one step out of it, those are still in our queue, and they're still actively things that we need to prioritize time to get these applications through. I don't know that there's anything at this moment. I truly hope that this is a kind of a good sign of the moment and of the times and of the economy and the low interest rates. And I and certainly we can ask Engineer Hudson as well, but I don't think that this is a long-term problem at this point. I think it's a blip, which is why we've asked for this funding. I do think by the fall we will slow down again. If that is not the case, I certainly will be looking to come back to you with a longer-term solution. But I think if interest rates rise, as they say they might later this year, and as we get closer to the winter season, we should level out again. And so this is an effort to stay ahead of it until we don't push people out past the construction season.
All set, Alderman Tenzo?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the planning and engineering departments for all they're doing with the middle school project. They have been great, very responsive. And there are two reasons I'd like to see this passed. One is I don't want that to have anything interfering with that great support we're getting. And two, all of these things add to the tax base, which is very positive for us. Alderman Jettie.
So Director Marchand, so this is labeled unanticipated revenue. So from what you said, it sounded like we're getting, because there are increased applications, we're getting more revenue from the application fees than we anticipated. And you're just taking that revenue and applying it to, subcontracting out some of the work that has to be done. So it's kind of a wash. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's not the source of funding we're using, but yes, you would, the money we collect in fees and application fees is higher than anticipated. That goes directly to the general fund, and it is not, it's not on both sides of the balance sheet. So yes, that money goes to the general fund. We have increased revenues coming in this year, and you'll see that in the budget book. But these dollars are coming from unanticipated revenue from the purchase of the Burke Street property. And I see Director Cummings nodding along, and I think he would be the best to explain where that unanticipated revenue is coming from.
Director Cummings, would you like to add?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Dowd. For the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development. As Director Marchand correctly stated, the source of funds for this particular expenditure, we identified over the last few months, we have been getting about $10,000 for basically an option that the prospective purchaser of the Burke Street property has been paying the city. We're going to take this revenue, which was unanticipated, and dedicate it to this expenditure. Ultimately, what this means is this expenditure is not going to be paid for by the property tax base.
Also, since this is unanticipated revenue that was not in the mayor's budget for FY 2021, that's why we're having a public hearing and need 10 votes to pass this. All set, Alderman Jettie?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Seeing or hearing no one, I'll open up the public hearing. I'll now take testimony in favor of R21-134. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this? Seeing and hearing no one, I will close the testimony in favor, and I'll take testimony in opposition to R21-134. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this resolution? Seeing and hearing no one, I'll move on once again to testimony in favor of R21-134. Seeing and hearing no one, I'll move on against testimony in opposition to R21-134. Seeing and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing on R21-134 closed at 7:14 p.m. And we are going to go right into the budget meeting as soon as Alderman O'Brien makes his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion that the May 17, 2021 special meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned by roll call.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
yes,
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez, Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Laws,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver, Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
All right, you have 12 yeas and 0 nays.
And that motion carries, and we're adjourned at 7:16 PM. And we will go right into the budget meeting. And I'd like to call the Budget Review Committee to order. It's Monday, May 17th, 2021 at 7:16 PM via teleconference. As chairman of the Budget Review Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the city's website for the meeting link. To join by phone, dial 1-929-205-6099. Meeting ID is 825-1383-1135, and the passcode is 373407. The public may also view the meeting via channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through the public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and the Nashua Public Library. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during the meeting will be done by roll call vote. We'll start the meeting by taking roll call attendance of the Budget Committee. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Alden O'Brien, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman at Large, Shoshana Kelly.
I'm here. I'm alone and I can hear everyone.
Alderman Michael O'Brien is present. I can hear the proceedings and I am alone. Alderman at Large, Laurie Wilshire.
I'm here. I'm alone and I can hear everyone.
Alderman Ernest Jettie.
I'm here alone and I can hear the proceedings.
Alderman Jan Schmidt.
I'm present, alone, and can hear everyone.
Alderman at Large Ben Clemmons.
I'm sorry, I am here and I'm by myself and I can hear everyone.
And Alderman Richard A. Dowd.
Yes, I'm present. I can hear the proceedings and I am alone. Also in attendance, we have.
Yes, yeah, Mr. Chairman, you do have 7 members present. Also attending, I think I have Alderman Lou, Alderman Clay, Alderman Harriet Gathright, and Alderman Laws. Any other alderman present? Okay, also in attendance, Mr. Chairman, Dan Hudson, City Engineer, Mr. Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director, and Sarah Marchant.
All right. All right. First item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak on anything on tonight's agenda for the Budget Committee?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, just quickly, I noticed you're going to talk about a pilot program for the Bronstein redevelopment. I'm just wondering, when you talk about the pilot program, there seems to be a lot more going on with pilots. And if there's any information you could share about the city's expanded use of them and what you're trying to accomplish or the benefits you see for the city in using the pilots, it would be helpful. I think there are some good things there, and I don't think that everyone understands what pilots are about. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing and hearing no one else, I'll close public comment. Communications,
There are none.
unfinished business,
There is none.
new business resolutions.
Before us this evening is R-21-134, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $30,000 of unanticipated revenue into Department Number 160 Public Works, Administration and Engineering. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Motion on the floor is to recommend final passage of R-21-134. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this? We just had the definition presented to us by Director Marchand and others at the public hearing. Is there anyone on the Budget Committee that would like any further amplification? Seeing and hearing no one, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Clemmons.
Alderman Clemmons?
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries, and R-21-134 will go forward to the full board with a positive recommendation. Alderman O'Brien.
Also, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also before us this evening is R-21-136, authorizing developer agreement for the payment in lieu of taxes pilot for Bronstein redevelopment. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
So the motion on the floor is to recommend to the full board final passage of R-21-136. Is there anyone that would like to, from the city, would like to talk to the context of this resolution?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman.
Director Cummings.
Thank you. So yes, for the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development. I'm here before you this evening to ask that you favorably recommend this evening this legislation before you, R-21-136. And I ask that you do it understanding that there may be some other committees that will need to weigh in on this. So I'd like the motion to make sure it reads that subject to the favorable recommendations of whatever other committee it was assigned to. This is a time-sensitive matter where we're hoping to get this project underway, and it has to go before the New Hampshire Finance Housing Authority, I think for the June meeting. So time is of the essence for this piece of legislation. Mr. Chairman, I'm proud to be here asking for you to support this piece of legislation. This is a good public-private partnership that we've developed in tandem with the Nashua Housing Authority and their private developer, ultimately Boston Capital, who's helping guide them through this initiative. So I heard the comments made a few minutes ago about why are we using pilots. First, I want to just correct the record and make sure it's understood that we're not expanding the use.
Oop, we lost you, Tim.
going to be paid for. We are trying to keep pilots used in a very limited fashion, very narrowly focused. But the reasons why it is warranted tonight and for this project is because this community is in desperate need of housing, and in particular housing for low-income individuals. This project does that for you. We get a net increase of something like approximately 160 deed restricted units. We have about 40-ish on site now with the current Bronstein development. When all said and done, you'll see a net increase of something like 160-ish deed restricted units, which is a great introduction of new supply into the marketplace, and one that I know we desperately need. In addition to that, I think we can all agree that this project and site, the Bronstein site as we know it right now, is rather tired, and we're well overdue for the private investment that's about to be made on it. And this has been a long time coming, one that I know has been in the back of the minds of a lot of people here. And I am very happy and pleased that through the hard work of the folks on the Housing Authority and their consultants, they were able to put together a program that we could all be proud of. I watched them start this more than a year and a half ago, where they did some public outreach. They made it very clear their intention was to include everyone in the process. And I'm pleased to tell you tonight that they absolutely fulfilled that mission. So with that being said, I'm going to just quickly go through the legislation before you this evening and just kind of hit the highlights of what this development agreement says. I would like to keep my comments relatively short because I know we all have other matters we need to attend to this evening. So just kind of going right through here, we have the first page with the recitals that kind of sets the stage for what's happening. Then we go into the actual tax agreement itself in paragraph 2. And the first few years, we're not looking to charge any type of taxes on the development. This is understandable. If you think about it, it's going to take them a few years to actually build the buildings. They're not going to be getting any revenue in. So we're just trying to be fair to them to make sure that no taxes are going to be charged to them until they actually start bringing in some income and the site stabilizes to some degree. Then after that, for about 15 years, we're going to be looking to charge them $225,000 in taxes with a 3% escalator. You may be asking yourself, well, what does that equate to for a savings that this project may be getting, or how much is the community not going to be getting? And if it was taxed at its full fair market value. And I could say approximately, it's about approximately a 50% discount on its full fair cash value. Give or take 10% there, here or there, it equals about 50% break over the life of the agreement. Moving on, paragraph 3, which just talks about the procedure. Basically, it states that we're looking to have the pilot, the tax payments run just like the way they would if they were paying their taxes normally, twice a year payments. We want to make sure the agreement continues. We got to make sure that there are annual filings, so there are compliance periods. Paragraph 7 talks about waiving of fees. We are waiving our building fees. We're waiving some of our other local impact fees that should be noted. Another big thing that we're doing, which I think is a wonderful testament of how we're trying to make this a public-private partnership. The city is, repurposing and realigning some of our internal plans. We've been working very closely with the DPW, and we're essentially going to take on the cost of doing some pavement and road work improvements along Myrtle Street. Wasn't initially in our plan. We were going to do it at another time. We're going to rejuggle things so we can accommodate this request, and it helps save on some project costs. We're committing some home funds to the project. We're doing that over a couple of years as outlined in the agreement. And then that's pretty much the substance of the agreement. The next couple paragraphs really just talk about various housekeeping type items or standard boilerplate items that you may see in some of our other agreements. Amendments being necessary, speaking to the entirety of the agreement, speaking to the law and where a court would hold anything if there was litigation, notice, counterparts, severability, authority, and that pretty much wraps up the substance of the legislation. So I'm going to close my comments there, Mr. Chair. I know there's probably some other folks who would like to speak and say a few words, but I'd just like to ask you and the members of this committee to vote on this favorably this evening. It's a good piece of legislation, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the project get underway. We are long overdue for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I asked for questions. I saw Alderman Clements first, then Alderman Wiltshire.
Thank you. So my question is a bit off topic because I just want to be clear about something. The entire project is not just low income housing, though. It's a mix. Is that correct?
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Director Cummings?
Thank you. Yes, that is correct, though I will say substantially it has a low income housing component to it, but there are market rate units with the project as well.
Can you tell me, so you're saying right now there's 40 low income units and you say it's going to increase by 160. So I assume that that's going to be 200 in the end. Is that correct?
I believe the number's 216 is the entire unit count. Of that 216, 10 will be market rate. So approximately 206-ish in that range would be deed restricted units.
Okay.
Alderman Clements?
Is there any, yeah, I mean, I guess, is there any opportunity to increase that market rate number, I'm wondering? Or is this a final deal?
If I may, no, I understand what he's saying, but the way the formulas all work and the way the pro formas need to work together for financing reasons, it really has to be developed in this manner. I can tell you we asked very early on that they include market rate housing. They were able to get 10 units in. We made that very clear that we would like to see also some market rate units in there, and we were happy that they were able to include some portion of it into the project.
All set,
Okay.
Alderman Clements?
For now, yep.
Okay, I have Alderman Wiltshire.
Thank you. This is not something new to the city. The Housing Authority has been in the city of Nashua since the 1940s. This is a really good project, and it meets so many needs of the city. I mean, I know that the Housing Authority has 3,000 people on one waiting list and maybe about 4,000 on another waiting list. So there is a real need, a demand for this kind of housing. I have the utmost respect of the people at the Housing Authority to do the right thing, to make this project work and work well for our community. And I give them mad props for bringing this forward. I mean, we have been trying for quite a while now to improve the Bronstein site. And I'm hoping that most of you or all of you will see that this is really necessary. It's something that we've been looking to do as a city for quite a while, and the Housing Authority stepped up and they're doing it, and I appreciate that, and I hope everyone else does too. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Director Cummings, when you first started speaking, you kind of blanked out. We didn't hear exactly everything you were saying. You were talking about we are not expanding pilots, and then for a few minutes after that, I couldn't hear anything you said. So I don't know if you wanted to. I don't know if you can kind of recreate what you said, if you remember where you left off there. Or...
Director Cummings.
Well, I was speaking extemporaneously, so I can't recall it verbatim, but essentially the message or the spirit of what I was trying to say is, we are not increasing the usage of pilots. This is a development agreement. One section of the development agreement does speak to taxes. We're trying to keep the pilot program, if you will, very narrow in its focus and its intent and usage here in the city. This project does call for, it does warrant a tax payment type structure, one that I wholeheartedly recommend to you all. Why? Because we're increasing deed restricted units for the, for those who need housing the most, and giving them access to housing that they otherwise may not have made available to them. We're increasing that exponentially. Going from 40-ish deed restricted units to something like 160 net new for supply. And then lastly, I was just commenting that the Bronstein project or site, I should say, in and of itself is rather tired. It's come to its end of life. We need to reinvest in this area of the city. It makes sense to move a project in this direction. The developers who are taking this project on are really doing a great service for the city by creating a dynamic project right at the corner of the brand new Broad Street Parkway. And it will become a nice gateway into the downtown as well. So for those reasons, plus for the fact that this project does need it, we are restricting the revenue that will be coming in, because they will be providing a reduced rent for those individuals in our area who need housing. I think it makes sense for us to provide this this tool for them, and that's why that's all I was essentially saying.
Yeah, in the 10 plus years that I've been around, we've used this very judiciously. It has to be something that provides a substantial benefit to the city, and I think this does. Are you all set, Alderman Jettie?
If I could follow up, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for that. I just didn't want to, I didn't want you to lose the opportunity to say something you were trying to say, or at least us hearing what you were trying to say. I thought that, since I thought that the Nashua Housing Authority was, a federally sponsored organization, and as such, was not liable to taxes at all, and that they're volunteering to make payments in lieu of taxes was kind of an agreement on their part. And is my understanding incorrect about that? If we didn't do this, would they be, would the Nashua Housing and Redevelopment Authority be subject to normal property taxes?
Director Cummings?
Thank you. So it's a good, very technical question. So the taxation on the improvements would actually inure to not the Nashua Housing Authority, but the entity that would be owning the property, which is a special purpose legal entity, which I believe the Housing Authority may be a limited partner in that, but there'll be a managing partner and probably a few others as well. I'm not really sure of that part, but it will not be a legal entity holding the asset in hand.
All set, Alderman Jettie?
So if I could follow up. So the actual entity that will be owning this property will not be the Nashua Housing and Redevelopment Authority, but something else, and that's why they would, the something else would be subject to taxes. Is that what you're saying?
Director Cummings?
Yes, essentially correct. I mean, there's a few other nuances in there where the land will be retained by the Housing Authority, leased. So it's the improvements on the leased land area that would be taxable. But essentially, yes, Alderman Jettie, what you're saying is essentially accurate. And anytime we lease to a private sector entity, taxes have to be paid.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Lopez?
With regards to Alderman Jetty's point, and I guess I was heading in the same direction as that. The National Housing Redevelopment Authority, over the past several years, President Wilshire can probably provide more direct insight since she's the liaison, but they've modified their legal entity and partnerships and transitioned from being sort of just the federal broker of public housing that they were in the past to include a limited private entity and nonprofit entity partnership as well. And that's so they can do things like generate revenues to sustain and promote more long-term sustainability, so they aren't sort of subject to the whims of whoever's president, whoever's governor, whatever. It provides, my understanding is it's supposed to provide more continuity of service, but also give them access to more resources. What I had wanted Director Cummings to just highlight a little bit was, on its surface, people may understand what the National Housing Authority is. But in a recent infrastructure meeting, we had explicitly made a point that we don't necessarily give out tax incentives or relief to any development project, because Director Cummings has brought this up in a number of other circumstances where it's not, in his considered opinion, the best practice to subsidize developments and projects. So you've already done a good job of articulating the tremendous positive impact this has for the city. One of our leading issues in terms of constituent services and really humanitarian need is a lack of capacity in affordable housing. And the region that this is going to be benefiting in terms of a developmental area is one that really needs reinvestment. It's in that area that is identified federally as extremely economically depressed. So those are two major factors. But Director Cummings, can you comment explicitly on how this project may be considerably different than, say, somebody adding a second level to their storefront and maybe an apartment or two?
Yes, happy to, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Director Cummings.
Yes, and Alderman Lopez makes a great point, and I was before the infrastructure committee or a member of the board of at a Board of Alderman committee meeting recently, and I talked about how we being the city, we're getting asked numerously, many times, many different projects about tax breaks and different type of tax incentives that we can offer. And I've been very clear in the position, which I do not recommend that we go down that path easily. And a project would need to warrant it. And there are some ways in which I recommend that we can value or judge that. First, substantial rehabilitation or investment in a site. I mean, and this is a good project. You're going to see, I would suggest something like between a $40 to $60 million type of investment in this area. That is a good investment that would make us think that we should be looking at a tax incentive. Why? Because we are limiting their income or their revenue that they're going to be able to bring in. And they are doing it explicitly understanding that they will be providing housing stock for individuals who may otherwise not be able to obtain it. Those are community values, ones that I absolutely agree with and believe in. And that is why I think this project, more than any other, warrants a tax incentive. Oftentimes in economic development, you use the but-for clause. You want to make sure that but for an offer of a tax incentive, a project would move forward. I can tell you, I've run through the analysis. This project absolutely meets that standard, but for us providing this incentive, this project would not be able to move forward. Unlike the other projects, to Alderman Lopez's question, where I have had conversations with the developer, and I kid you not, they have told me, and I appreciate their honesty, they have told me that they would get like a 15 to 18% IRR on their investment, but they think they want to do just a little bit better. So they've asked me if we would give them a tax break so they could get something like a low 20s IRR. IRR stands for internal rate of return. It's basically a metric used in the investment world to judge whether you're making a good investment or not. And a 20%, anything at 15% is a good return in real estate for our market. And so when I'm already talking to a local developer and they're telling me that this is what they're going to get, I can't in good faith turn to this body and say, this is a project I could recommend. In this instance, I can absolutely in good conscience bring this to you and tell you that this project does meet all the standards which we should be looking at providing incentive. And I am by no means easy to deal with when it comes to this type of conversation. I would suggest that some members of the National Housing Authority may be a little frustrated with me because I'd like to believe I do my due diligence. I dot my I's, I cross my T's, I ask the right questions. And I do that because I know more than anyone that we're talking about the taxpayers' money. And we have to be very serious and very considerate in what we're doing. And what I can say with this project is that the city of Nashua will be very proud at the end of the day when this project is done.
Thank you. All set?
Just in response, we are all aware of the taxpayers' money. We take it very seriously, especially this particular year, looking at the budget. And that's what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. So we're right there with you on that. I just wanted to acknowledge that to a smaller business, a higher IRR for an investment it means more because they're smaller versus a larger one. That's a very important factor to consider in terms of you made the decision. Did you make it for profit and you're using the tax break in order to improve that profit? Or are you looking at an IRR for survival? So I think there's probably some cases where someone might look at that and say, okay, well, what he's saying though is that he wants us to go under, and I don't think that's what Director Cummings is saying. And then finally, there are recognizable conditions and major city priorities. This is one that has had considerable attention, and we've directed considerable economic development attention to, as well as annually referring considerable city welfare and human services resources towards. Just because we have a lot of nonprofit organizations pitching in doesn't mean that this crisis, this housing crisis that we're experiencing, wouldn't cost the taxpayers a lot of money up front if the city were left solely to deal with it, and doesn't cost taxpayers a tremendous amount of effort in terms of the amount that they volunteer, in the terms of the amount that they donate, and all of the industries that are supported by it. So housing is a basic need for any community. You can't have a city without people living there. This meets that need, and that's where I think it's important for people who are trying to augment or enhance businesses downtown seeking a tax break. The first thing you should be doing is talking to Director Cummings and the city about what exactly that would entail before you undertake the project, before you prove that you could complete the project without our help. And that's really the reasoning and the methodology you'd want to be using in that development, rather than saying, well, this would help my business run a little bit more smoothly. That's important. We take the small business very, very seriously. But when you're talking about everybody's pot of money and everybody's shared resources, you have to show how not only will it help your business sustain itself, but you're paying it forward and back into the community. So Director Cummings, I hope I didn't unnecessarily modify anything you were saying. I just heard a couple of things I didn't want people to take an exception to.
Thank you, Alderman Lopez. I now have Alderman Lou.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions. I did think that the pilot program was reserved for nonprofits. And so now I understand that it's also used for entities, for-profit entities, and this is the situation that we're in with this pilot. Is that correct?
Dr. Cummings?
Through you to Mr. Cummings.
There's a RSA that affords a private entity to be able to be the beneficiary of a tax break like this, so long as they're providing affordable housing.
Follow up, please.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to question whether it was allowed. I think I looked at the RSA that was referenced in this, and no, I think I Googled pilot, but so that's fine. So this is not it's related to a nonprofit, correct? It seems like it's just sort of in the structure of the entity that it's strictly speaking not the nonprofit that we're conveying the pilot to. Am I correct there, Mr. Cummings?
Director Cummings?
There will be an entity involved in this project, though probably in a limited type capacity, that has governmental powers.
All
Okay.
said, Alderman Loon?
No, I'm just one more question, but I mentioned nonprofit, and then you mentioned governmental powers. So is that something, I'm not sure how to ask the question. What kind of governmental? I see. It's not a nonprofit, but it's a governmental. I see. Oh, okay. Thank you. The only other question I have is the deed restrictions. Are we just talking about that it's a low income rates? The rates are, rather the rents are limited.
Director Cummings?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
All set.
I'm all
Thank you,
set.
Alderman Loon. Alderman Clements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to support this. Obviously, I think I think we need affordable housing in the city, and but I'm disappointed in the sense that that we're basically increasing the size 3 times of the affordable housing that's currently there into that one spot, because I don't appreciate projects generally like that. That's where you get the name, the projects. It's what I was hoping we were going to try to avoid when this project came about, to try to redo that area. And it begs the question of why these types of developments aren't done in other areas of Nashua. Why is it always in the downtown? Why isn't it not out in Ward 1 or Ward 9? Why are all of this, why is it always right in the center of town? And I understand that historically, the Bronstein apartments have been there, and that's what their original intent is. And I know that the idea is that obviously the housing that's there now needs to be significantly redeveloped, and ultimately this is going to be a benefit to Nashua. But I sincerely hope that moving forward, when we do new projects, new low income projects like this, that we look at other places in the city. Granted, they have to be on things like the bus route, and they have to be near amenities and things like that. But I don't think that it's too far out of the question to kind of say, why should all of these places be concentrated in one area? That's how you get the low income census tracts and things like that. And it just, I don't know. I don't like it, because to me, it's, in my opinion, it's kind of snobbish, and I wish that we could change that. All that being said, I'll support the project, because I think that ultimately it's a need that we severely have, and so far I don't see anybody else stepping up to the plate to do anything for it in as far as development or things like that. So sometimes when you have a bird in the hand, you got to take it. So That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
So I think the question is why there? And Director Cummings?
Yes. Yes. Hi. Hold
You brought
on
in
one
an
second.
expert.
I did. I brought in my little guy. And I think Alderman Clemens made an excellent point. And I completely agree with what he was saying, actually. And we should be. Hold on one second, buddy. And I do think we should be looking to spread around the affordable housing in our community, our inventory. And with that being said, I know Director Marchant and I are good night. Good night, buddy. Thank you. Sorry, it's bedtime at my house. Director Marchant and I are looking to have that type of conversation with Imagine Nashua going on in the master planning effort, and we are having an affordable housing type conversation as well for the very reasons that Alderman Clemens is talking about.
Okay, all said, Alderman Clemens?
Yes, thank you.
Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to add to the, I wasn't going to at first, but as a person who spent the first 9 years living in what was called the project in Holyoke, Massachusetts, I can tell you the one thing that I have learned is that projects, because of the like income, et cetera, does build up a sense of community, which is a wonderful thing. Different than the regular, your average neighborhood. But having said that, I completely agree with what Alderman Clemens said, and what Director Cummings and Director Marchant are trying to do is to create mixed communities. I think it's important for us to be more homogenous and to understand how each person lives. But I still do, having grown up at least the first 10 years of my life in the projects, there is a sense of community that it's different than any other type of living situation. So, you know, I did want to add that to it, but I do think we do need to spread it around. And Director Cummings, thank you for your conversations with Director Marchant to making that happen.
Alderwoman Kelly?
Thank you. I also have bedtime in the background, so excuse me if there's some yelling. I've been listening. I think everyone brought up some really thoughtful points on this. I know that this has been an ongoing conversation in terms of affordable housing, the need for it in our city, and how to continue moving forward. So I know in talking with Director Cummings and Director Marchant and a number of community members and leaders who are really focused on this issue, that this is step one of a much bigger plan. And I think this is the right public-private partnership to get started on. We do need to consider continuing to spread out how we do this type of mixed housing to make sure that we are not concentrating poverty in certain areas in our city. And so I know with the master planning and in the people here who are working really hard on this, that we're going to get there. So this is a great first step, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it so far.
Thank you, Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Lopez, did you have something you wanted to add that hasn't been said?
Yeah, I just want to clarify some perceptions about the downtown area. I think we have been doing a lot of developments. The Marshall Street is in an area that is not considered downtown unless you really want to expand it. The Cotton Mill is on the other side of a river from it. So we have been putting low-income housing and mixed-use housing in different areas. And I would just like to say on behalf of the Tree Streets downtown area, we're not a ghetto. Like, we have a lot of mixed-use housing. We do definitely have that census tract, you know, in for a given value of what the federal government tracks, but the clock tower apartments are pretty nice and pretty pricey when it comes to their value and what they bring. The building I live in is pretty nice. There's some new developments along West Hollis that likewise also, they cost a lot. So I don't think we're concentrating poverty in one particular area. I think a lot of the concentrated poverty is a result of its proximity to amenities that are important, but many people aren't necessarily staying here for a long term or life or anything like that. They're just on their way to other parts of the city. So I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that all of the poor people are living downtown, because that's not true. And I definitely think we have put a lot of work into developments that if you look geographically at them on the map, although we are currently working on a Bronstein Apartments project and a School Street project, they're not concentrated downtown. They're all over the city. There's one that was going through the zoning board that's on exit 1. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Schmidt, anybody else that has their hand up that already spoke, please put your hands down unless you want to speak again. Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say, I think this is a tremendous first step for this kind of building. We know that the area needs redevelopment. It's needed it for a good long time. It's right there at the end of the parkway, which makes it very visible in the city. This would be an excellent opportunity for us. And it certainly doesn't mean that this is the last time that we will do something like this. It may be so successful that we can continue it quite a few more times in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Clemens, did you have another follow on?
Yeah, I just want to follow up and say that, you know, I wasn't trying to suggest anything, and quite to the contrary, that I've lived, you know, I grew up on Kinsley Street. I grew up there. I have lived on Blossom Street. I live on Ash Street now. I like the downtown area. I like where I live. I like living in the inner city. I like my neighbors. There's low-income housing right below my house. I mean, right behind my house. I didn't, it was a vacant lot when I moved in. I could have gone to the zoning board and to the planning board and objected to it when it was built, because it's literally a parking lot right behind my house. I didn't do that because I understand the fact that people need a place to live. But my whole thing is that people need alternatives to just having to live downtown. And, you know, you look at where the housing in this city is concentrated for people with lower income, and it's mainly the downtown area off of exit 1. There's some off of exit 8, and really it's all concentrated along the major corridors. So I just, my only point was that there's a lot of space in Nashua. We have a lot of opportunity. I would like to see more creative developments in the future, because even though I like living here and I like living in downtown, that doesn't mean that somebody else who doesn't necessarily have the means shouldn't be afforded the option to potentially live somewhere else in the city, if they were given the opportunity to do so. So that's my only point. And you know, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Alderman Clemens. Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion over the last several months about affordable housing. So I am in favor of this. So if there are no further questions or comments from the committee, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Clemens,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries and will be forwarded on to the full board. New business ordinances,
There are none.
general discussion. Anyone for general discussion? Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. I again want to thank the Housing Authority for stepping up and making the most of and the best of the opportunities they can for housing in the city. It's not an easy thing to how do I want to say that, to fit something in, you know, redevelop an area that has been so run down. yeah, I mean, I just thank them for everything they're doing in that neighborhood, and who knows, maybe someday down the road, you know, they'll be looking to do some other redevelopment or something. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other general discussion? Seeing none, we'll now open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the members of the public that would like to speak? Anyone? Hearing no one, we'll move on to remarks.
Mr. Chair, there was a gentleman who had his hand raised, ERW's iPhone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. State your name and address for the record and go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Eric Wilson, 60 Indian Rock Road. I have probably for the last 2 decades, I've served on the National Housing and Redevelopment Authority. I've looked through the web here and I see Tom Monahan, who's been on all night with me, and he's been on the board a lot longer than I have. And I just wanted to thank the Budget Committee for your consideration of this, and just briefly some of the questions that were raised earlier. I just want the balance of the committee to understand that this is a limited partnership that the Housing Authority is engaging in for federal tax credit. So we need to have some limited partners with us for a period of about 15 years, and then everything comes back to the Housing Authority. And it's a tremendous opportunity for us, and I appreciate everything that this committee has done. I know there's some questions about location, but there's about 3,000 people still on our waiting list that we're constantly trying to house, and we are trying to expand what we're doing over to the Burke Street Major Drive area as well. So we look forward to working to expand affordable housing throughout the city, and I appreciate your time and your commitment. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you to both of you for serving on that group and doing as much as you do for the people of Nashua. It's well appreciated. Any other public comment? Seeing none, remarks by Alderman. Okay, I just want to mention that the Budget Committee for the FY22 budget starts this Thursday at 7 o'clock on Zoom. I will also mention that we are taking our first steps to moving back into the chamber. And the Budget Committee, in addressing the FY22 budget, after Thursday, starting Monday, the 24th, we will be having the Budget Committee meeting in the chamber, socially distanced, with masks. And we went through a test run of the new equipment today. And that's why we're not meeting there Thursday, because we're still working out the bugs, but it's quite amazing, actually. So starting the 24th, the members of the Budget Committee will have access to City Hall. If any other members of the Board of Aldermen want to be there in person, they can, but they will have to sit in the, what I'm referring to as the pews, the benches in the back, and socially distance and wear masks. And we'll have to make arrangements to get into the building. The Budget Committee will have a way of getting into the building. The people presenting and the members of the public will attend by Zoom, just like we've been doing now. And we will be able to see them on Zoom on the multiple monitors that are now in the chamber. And over time, we will be moving back into City Hall, which is a good thing, but this will be the first test to get all the bugs out and to have a discussion on the FY22 budget. Does anyone have any questions relative to that? I've talked to a couple people. I haven't been able to call everyone on the Budget Committee. If anyone on the Budget Committee actually does not want to appear in the chamber, they can still attend via Zoom, and we can address it that way. And we will socially distance. It won't be necessarily where your normal seat is, but you'll be separated. And again, you have to wear masks, and it's been checked with legal and the public health. Again, the public will have to attend via Zoom, And if any other alderman that's not on budget committee wants to attend, please arrange with me or Donna so we can make sure that you can get into the building. But you would have to seat in the benches. Any questions? If anybody has any questions, they can give me a call before the time. So any other remarks by Alderman? Seeing none, we don't need a
Alderman
non-public.
Jettie had his hand up.
Chairman,
Alderman Jettie?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So since you brought up this, the fact that we're going to, start slowly reintroducing people into meetings at City Hall, I did want to let the public know, anybody who might be watching, that the public, the Board of Health is having a meeting. I'm sure Alderman Lopez knows more about this than I do. But
Tomorrow
they
at 12:30.
Wednesday at
Wednesday at 12:30.
at 12:30 to discuss masks and the ordinance about masks. So anyone who's interested in either observing or providing input, it's available on Zoom, and I believe the Zoom address is on the agenda on the city website.
Yeah, one of the things I forgot to mention is there still is construction going on in City Hall, especially in the city clerk's office. That city clerk's up on the 3rd floor, and her office is going through major construction. So still a lot of construction going on in City Hall. Any other member want to bring anything up? No? Okay, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to adjourn by roll call.
Okay, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes, Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries, and we're adjourned at 8:12 p.m. Thank you, everyone.